Hey everyone, this is Steven from Campus Inc. We're back for another episode of the NIL Show with Adam Sean and a special guest. I'll let Adam introduce him. Adam, who we got today?
We got Nima Omidvar. Really excited to chat with you today, Nima. I'll just kind of run down a little bit of your background, let people know who you are, where you've been, because you have a wealth of experience here. So you have been a coach on both the high school and collegiate levels. Your collegiate tours of duty have seen you go from Fordham, George Washington, South Alabama, spent some time coaching at Maryland, NC State, and Bowie State. You have made it 7 NCAA tournament appearances, which is incredible, along with recruiting 14 players who have gone on to see some time in the NBA. So assistant coach now at Coastal Carolina. Really excited to see what you guys have going on this year. Incredible school colors. So really excited to see that and really grateful to have you join us on the pod today.
Thanks so much, Adam, Steven. Excited to chat with you, Sean. Great to talk to you and see you again. Sean and I got to know each other working side by side at 3 NCAA tournaments out of that 7 while at the University of Maryland. Really excited to be here at Coastal Carolina with a future Hall of Famer, Cliff Ellis, and trying to build this thing up in an exciting time of where we are with basketball.
That's right. I think you're 3. So you were at Maryland 3 years, Nima?
4 years, 3 NCAA tournaments. The last one was pretty young, but 3 out of 4, not too bad.
That's right.
I'll take 75%. It's not an English paper. It's basketball. It's 75%.
Yeah, those are Hall of Fame numbers right there if you're a baseball player, right?
I think so.
Yes.
I think so.
So of those 4 years, I actually only worked with men's basketball for 1 year that Coach Nima was there. But it was an eye-opening experience working with Coach Nima because he's just somebody who is constantly pushing and pulling levers and seeing how he can find an advantage in things, how he can best serve the players, how he can best serve the team. And I loved working with him because he was just always looking to push the boundary on what you could do. And so when we started talking about NIL and name, image, likeness, I know that it's something that you've been thinking about for a long time, Coach, in terms of how it can benefit players and set them up to succeed. So my first question for you, Coach, give me a college basketball player who would have made the most money if NIL existed during their time.
Well,
first player that comes to mind.
First player that comes to mind is a kid that is now a man, Melo Trimble, that we worked together with. And you'll be really humble, by the way, Sean. I know you only worked officially 1 year while I was there, but you worked with men's basketball the entire time, just so we're clear. But Melo Trimble had the humility that I thought would thought and think moving forward would lend itself to NIL opportunities. He was a Maryland kid. He had Maryland tattooed on his back, literally, the word Maryland.
That's awesome.
And I never will forget it. He came back for his sophomore year. We were top 10 in the country, and we're doing a autograph signing in terms of marketing to help attendance for football, who at the time was still growing and building at that institution. And Melo was gracious in signing every person's autograph. And I said to Melo, "Hey Melo, I'm going to pretend that I'm getting a phone call. I'm going to stick the phone at you. You can answer it, and we can walk away." And Melo said, "Nah, Coach, I don't want that. I worked hard to sign these autographs and make these kids happy." And he signed every single one, took every single selfie. And that's the type of, humility that I think really lends itself to brands, to, campuses and communities, because if people want a piece of you and you're gracious enough to give a piece back of your time and your energy, there could be a reward for that.
That's awesome.
Melo was special. He was special.
Diamond would have got the Mervis Jewelers and all those cats. Diamond would have got some deals out of it too now. So I think we have a lot of entries, and I think also it just lends to the creativity of those individuals and the people around them and how they can really maximize their name, image, and likeness.
Yeah. As a coach, I'm always curious to know from your perspective. Do you all look at it as a distraction? Do you look at it as like, oh man, like what are these deals they're getting into? They need to focus on, on their schoolwork and being a great athlete. How was that mindset shift to like, for you as a coach, you want them to succeed, right? But you also want to win games.
Yeah, I don't think of it as a distraction. I think you as a coach, you have to constantly adjust to the times. When I got into college coaching, it was 2011, 2010. And that's when, Dragonfly was becoming an emerging video sharing software, where it used to be literally drive and sometimes hand off a DVD, mail the DVD. Then Synergy showed up. Think of the example of Netflix versus Blockbuster, and just countless of business books. They're like, you gotta adjust. Well, as someone that studies trends on outside of basketball, I'm constantly reminded that you cannot be fragmented in your mindset of like, I'm going to stick to the way it's always been done. You've got to evolve. You've got to adjust. So I don't think it's a distraction. I think it's a distraction if you're not enabling a healthy environment for the growth of your players. And, there's a $1 billion industry that we're in college athletics. I think it's very healthy that our players are able to tap into it. The reality is some of them have bigger market shares than others. That kind of figures itself out. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's a distraction at all.
Granted, okay, so that's a really responsible decision. But I would ask, how do you, because they're kids, right? They're young. These are their adolescent years. And I feel like when that NIL first boomed, everyone was like, I'm going to sign up for this and sign up for that, and Cameo and Barstool and all that stuff. What kind of talks did you have with the team? I mean, it's a life talk to be like, hey, you're no longer a kid. This is an adult. This is business. How did those conversations change, or did you have any of them, or did you kind of just stay hands off?
In the time of NIL, I've kind of eclipsed in three different roles. So one year I was not coaching. I was in a year in between opportunities where I really got to study it for myself, get to really meet with business owners, agents, both internationally and locally, to really get a firm understanding of it. So that was my baseline, to where I was chomping at the bit to want to be part of, NIL life. At Fordham University in New York, there were not laws that were passed that really allowed us to entertain and engage those conversations, if you will. Here in South Carolina, there is a law that allows us as coaches to be involved in, the solicitation of deals and help our players market and manage their name, image, and likeness. So, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to be here at Coastal, was to be a part of this. Is Sean alluded to, I'm always trying to be a step ahead of that next wave and the next trend. And I spent a lot of time considering how can we be the best at NIL. And actually being in a state like South Carolina allows us to do that. So, the conversations initially are simple. Guys, if someone approaches you, let's be smart about it, and let's make sure we've outlined who in your circle do you know and do you trust, because anytime that there's money and there's agreements, there's also going to be disagreements and missing money. So we gotta be really careful on how we balance that. And then to that same point, it's like, all right, now we also need to be organized. There's something called taxes. Uncle Sam is watching. So how are you managing that piece to ensure that there's not going to be a penalty and repercussion for the fruits of your labor? So really educating on the front end is important. A lot of players often, some of that education doesn't always absorb. That's what our job as coaches are. We need to give the information in a small bits and pieces where they can digest it and really comprehend it. If I draw a play and it's way too complex and they don't get it, it was a bad play. So same thing goes with education on NIL. If they don't digest and comprehend the information, then we didn't do our job. So that's just absolutely paramount. And it comes with, I think, constant communication. That doesn't require sit everyone down in the locker room and let's talk about it for 30 minutes. It could be while we're walking to class. Hey, did you guys take care of everything you need to take care of for that NIL deal you got? Or, hey, you posted something on social media. I don't think brands would really like that. And that might be a reason why you don't have NIL opportunities. So let's really be aware with our eyes open on everything that we do on a daily basis.
How do you get into coaching because obviously you love the sport, but I think, especially in collegiate athletics, there has to be a desire and a love for mentoring young men and young women and wanting to help them kind of navigate that path of success, whatever that means for them. And in this NIL era, you mentioned there's still a lot of states out there that don't maybe have legislation that allows coaches to have some of those tangible conversations. How do you navigate that of like, okay, I'm here because I'm an advocate for you. I want you to be successful. I'm a mentor for you. I'm a resource, but there's this one thing that I can't really, talk to you about or help you with that's pretty massive. How do you navigate that?
I think it starts really with trust. That can't be that one thing can't be the first thing we talk about. I think we've got to really build rapport with our student athletes, showing them that we care, showing them that we love them. That's more than just lip service. That comes through actions. That comes through, just time. There's just no other way. My track record at all the other institutions I've been at is very irrelevant when I walk into a new locker room, and even more irrelevant. And I've been part of 5 first-year situations where you're walking in with the coach for the first time. Those guys that are there in that locker room, they don't know you. They don't, really care about what you did in the past. It's really, what are you about to do for me moving forward? I always have prided myself on being what I consider a dream maker. And so whatever a player's dream is, it may be, that's what we want to chase after. So having those candid conversations early on of what motivates you, what makes you get up in the morning and strive for greatness is very, a very important foundation on understanding of where they want to go, me holding them accountable to those goals and dreams. And then along the way, when we want to talk about that one little thing, like you mentioned, Adam, that's a big deal. And now we've got a lot of equity built up on our relationship and how we've interacted to where I could say, okay, here we might need to hit the pause button, or, hey, we need to change something to get a better result. Holding someone accountable is one of the best ways to show that you care for them and that you want the best for them. And so, if someone is not doing something that would be the best for them, as someone who's lived as both a business owner, a business, entrepreneur, if you will, that's something that I hold very, near and dear. Hey, we've got other stakeholders in some of these other places in life. Let me show you an example of where this has bit us in the past. Now let's move forward, with a agreed upon solution for this task.
And Coach, I think one of the hardest parts for navigating you is probably that conversation earlier. A player shows up, they're a Division I athlete. Hey, I should make money just because I showed up. Well, no. It takes time. You got to build your brand. You have to build that affinity with your audience. Figure out who your audience is, these fans, these students on campus, and explaining that entire process, right?
Yeah. So, in reality, that's the way it should be. It's not right now. It's not being executed that way. That's just the cold truth of athletics. There are some that are getting a check just to show up, and so the markets will always correct themselves. That's I was an econ major and studied all sorts of different market trends. The markets always correct themselves. There's not enough artificial dough that you can toss in this thing to make it make sense.
This isn't LIV golf.
that will correct itself, right? But they operate in different markets. So anyway, that's the way I feel about that. Sean, you think about the Running Man challenge that did. Okay, Jared Nickens and Jalen Brantley did. Jared Nickens and Jalen Brantley were two role players for us at the University of Maryland who they really took the running man challenge. They were kind of the first to do it, and the major pushers of that whole hashtag that became the most Googled thing in 2016. They were not the best players on our program. They were some of the most likable. I still stay in touch with both of them to this day. And we sat in that locker room of ours and dreamt up different strategies to get other schools to be engaged. Villanova just won the national championship. Chris Jenkins and Nate Britt, who were both in that game, who were brothers. They had both come play pickup at Maryland. I was like, why don't you guys just challenge them? They know who you guys are. Let this thing kind of go from there. And so you can grow things authentically and organically, even without having production. But you gotta allow it to grow. There's definitely going to be some market correction based on some of what we've seen in the world of NIL. And you know what? Some of the stuff that we've seen in NIL is rumor. Like on the coach's side and recruiting side, there's a lot of numbers that get tossed around that are unsubstantiated, and we don't know if they're real. And there's no onus for anyone to prove that they're real. They're not publicly, they're not public information that needs to be put on the ESPN bottom line ticker. So that's something else that everyone's going to have to navigate, just like any other business. There's always misinformation. So this is going to be this is really year 1.5, right? We went through about a half a year and an off season in recruiting, at least in basketball, where NIL was present. This next season will be interesting. I think numbers will be kind of all over the map, but I think within the next 2 to 5 years, things will really kind of plateau and the market will correct itself.
Coach, do you see, I think what's really interesting, this generation, like Gen X, right? Whatever. They were born in the 2000s. It's crazy to think about. They are some of the most creative ever, right? And they're rewarded by like the gig economy, meaning like DoorDash and Uber and being able to work part-time jobs and have little pop-up stores. Like that wasn't something, Adam, Sean, and I had when we were, whatever. It was just coming. Do you see a shift in the athletes that like really gravitate towards it and are like, I love this? And do you see like some athletes that are like, no, I'm just here to play ball. Like, I don't want to do this. Are you seeing like kind of polarization of NIL at all?
Yes and no. You see a lot that want to get involved and get engaged. I think it's just like anything else in society. Some people want to do, some people don't want to do. You've heard the saying, no pain, no gain. Like if you're not willing to put in the work for something, you're not going to get rewarded for that something. Mm-hmm. If you love basketball and you put in the work for basketball, you'll get rewarded for basketball. That doesn't necessarily translate in NIL. Just because you love money and you put the work in towards it, you're not going to get paid just because of your name, image, and likeness. You kind of have to have both. And there's not, those desires are not always married up in the same way. So there's that. But, as I just mentioned, some kids are going to get rewarded for just, talent. And you know what? That's life. Like if you're very talented and you, people like you because you put the ball in the basket more than other people, or you ran across a white line and into what we now call an end zone more than other people. And you get fans. If you get fans, your brand grows. If your brand grows, you can get paid. You have more access to marketing opportunities. That's just reality. So I think everybody's got to make their own conscious decision. How do I want to grow my brand? Do I want to just kick everyone's ass on the court and I get followers because I'm kicking everyone's ass on the court? Cool. That's a great strategy. Do I want to spend time having very deliberate social media posts? Here we do Teal Tuesdays at Coastal Carolina. Do I want to be the best at Teal Tuesdays and get students to follow me because I do some crazy Teal Tuesday stuff? And then now I can market to my campus community. If that's what you want to do, let's do that. Whatever it is, you got to be all in on it. If you're not, it ain't going to work.
Yeah, I'm reminded of two quotes, two disparate quotes, and I think Nick Saban said this just recently. But he said, "Look, the reality is success takes what it takes, right? Like it just that's it. Like there's no shortcuts. There's no if you want to be successful, it takes what it takes. You just got to do it." And Stephen Ashworth, men's basketball player at Utah State, was here talking about, this you see these numbers and these deals that are thrown around, in the media, and it seems like the stuff just landed in people's laps. And, he's like, look, man, if you want to be successful in this NIL space, you got to put in the work, right? Like whether it be on the court or marketing yourself or reaching out for deals, like you still have to do something. You either have to be competitive and successful on the court or the field, or you have to focus on your brand or some combination of those both. But you can't just sit there and hope millions of dollars just come your way because NIL happens to be a thing now.
Yeah. I mean, we've read about Texas Tech football, BYU football. Those are some of the bigger names where they say, hey, everyone on the team is going to get something. Well, you know what? They earned their scholarship to that school. Mm-hmm. So they did put in some work. And each of those institutions have outlined, or their collectives, I should say, have outlined a pathway for them to put in some work, whether it be volunteer work and impacting their communities. I mean, Lubbock, Texas is not the most populous place. There's definitely community service that can be done there. And that's a place that adores their campus community. Yeah. There's a huge value in any of those individuals doing community service. That's a big deal. And the impact that they have is a big deal. So for anyone to armchair quarterback and say, oh, they're just getting paid to get paid, like that's so devaluing what they've already earned and the impact that they're having behind closed doors that, general public doesn't see, the smile that they put on kids' faces by interacting with them wherever they may be doing, if it's something to do with kids or maybe some soup kitchen for someone that may be less fortunate is you can't put a price on that.
I have to congratulate us, guys. We went over 20 minutes without saying the word collective, but we did it. Huge. We went there. Okay. We are talking about collectives.
Sorry, break the street, guys.
All right. You broke the ice. All right. You are on the recruiting front. You're talking to kids in high school. Tell us about it from your perspective and how collectives are. What's that conversation like?
Well, I think it really matters the level of player you're talking about. Recruiting, the access and the supply and demand of players is totally flipped to where right now I think, for a mid-major program like us, and we've won 6 championships in the last 11 years, we've got way more demand for our spots than there really is supply that we have to offer. And so, the pendulum is totally shifted. Transfer portal, access to junior college, international recruiting, high school recruiting. There's way more prospects that we can pick than there are spots. Yep. So, it's not as prevalent in our conversations. However, we are, able to engage those conversations. So I'll get back to that piece. If you're at the Power 5, there's far less players available that can help impact a SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, et cetera, league. And so you've got less players to pick from. The population of players that you can go after are just totally different. So, and a differentiation kind of component at that level, I think it's everything. Luckily, right now, I'm not at that level. So, in our level, it's a little bit less stress. We still have to go after the best player. We're not beating out Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, et cetera, to get that blue chipper. Is just not going to happen. But the collective conversation has come up at some point in a conversation with almost every kid. And even at, my previous institution where we're doing Zooms, I mean, we had a kid that we did a Zoom with who ended up ultimately, I don't think he's ended up going to any school. And we were interested in this kid. And we remember talking to his buddy who was on the Zoom saying, hey, what about NIL? Can you get my guy paid? It's like, whoa, man, like it don't always work that way. So it's a double-edged sword. We know that certain guys have value and certain guys don't, and what their market value is. That's part of what we study. I look at every kid's social media presence. I'm interested in that. I want to scroll through what you said after a game, after a win, after a loss. What do you say about pro teams? And do you just spout off at the mouth and have diarrhea mouth on Twitter? Like that type of stuff I want to know, because that also helps shape future conversations that we have. And so that I'm often the one that's going to bring it up to kind of state to the fact of like, hey, here's some mistakes and missteps you've had in the past. Let's help you clean that up so that a collective or a future brand, when you become a professional, is not just interested in signing you, they're offering a contract in the first conversation.
Because of your brand. Yeah. And Sean, you did that at Maryland. You would make sure all the guys tweeted out stuff properly. Like, tell me about this. Blew my mind. Tell me about this.
Well, no,
what was the story? You told me about this one time.
Well, it may have started when you were there, Nima. I can't remember, but I know I hit a certain point where it was like, as soon as we announced, or as soon as I got the word from coach that, hey, we're going to announce a new signing, before we announced it, I was going through that kid's social media account and just searching words. Because the last thing that I wanted was for his day to be ruined. Well, he's announced that he's coming to Maryland because he tweeted out something really dumb when he was 14 years old. Like, yeah, it's not great for that kid. It's not great for Maryland. And so I was always trying to look out for them. And then it got you way ahead of the curve. And you've heard of the players that in championship games, the biggest moments of their life, they're getting torn down because of a tweet they made or an Instagram post they made when they were young. So yeah, that was just part of helping them. Coach, I always go back to a conversation I had with Eric Ayala early in the season last year. And I know you love Eric too. You helped get him to Maryland, but he was a really, really mature beyond his years, guys. Like, just really special kid. Graduated from Maryland last year. And I asked him about NIL early on, and he told me two things that always stuck with me. One, he said, I worry about my time. I don't think that I have enough time, and I need to find people I trust around me to help me find really good deals, whether it's my mom or whether it's a friend that I trust. But I have to keep that circle really, really close, just as everything else in my life, to help me make sure that I'm making the right decisions. Two, Eric told me, he was like, I wish I was a freshman because I would take a business marketing class. I would try to learn how to do business and how to market. I just found those two things fascinating. I don't know if you do, Coach.
That's such a great point. I'm glad he meant that. The second point is a aha moment of like, damn, that is a good point. I hadn't thought of that. And that's something that I think as soon as we get done here, I'm going to mention to our academic advisor. Hey, you can get these guys a marketing class.
We've even thought about putting one on. I mean, Adam's a professor at Northwestern, and I was like, because Adam needs more things. Adam needs more things to do right now because he had a kid 6 months ago, quit his job, is building out this entire NIL company, and I'm like, yo, Adam, what if you just what if you made a program and they could take it for internship credit, and it was a 3-hour course, and it was like business marketing for NIL 101.
I mean, this is it. This is that professional development piece that we're talking about, right? And not to cut you off, Coach, but when we're talking about these opportunities, you're in recruiting. Obviously, there's the inducement conversation versus just the ecosystem conversation around, hey, how are we going to help you be successful, in this environment? And that's one of the massive low hanging pieces of fruit, right? Like, we can help you navigate this with all of the the resources that are here at the institution and be creative. And I from what Sean says, I know you're hyper creative in the way you think about using resources and leveraging opportunities for your guys. Yeah.
I mean, look, in Horry County, South Carolina, where we're located, this is the fastest growing county in the country. This is a, school and institution that's been open since 1954. So we have a very young kind of alumni base, if you will. We're still in our infancy stages, but there's a whole lot of pride in wearing this teal, being part of Teal Nation, because there's few that have earned that degree in the grand scheme of things compared to institutions that's been around for 200 plus years. So when you put these elements together, there's definitely opportunity. How do you harness that wind is what it all comes down to. And you know what, I could take this hat off, put on a different hat, and we could have dissected that institution and found just the same amount of wind. It's just all about putting that sail up the correct way. Now that I live in a beach town where we go out on boats, I got some sail metaphors. But, you got to put that sail up the correct way so that we can really get this thing moving. That's what it's all about. That's my job and task as, the quote unquote professional in this thing. But, everybody's a professional now. They're, amateurs out the door. I don't care what anybody says. That's just what it is. Mm-hmm. And so, the sooner that we can find student athletes that understand that, the better. And, some kids in the recruiting process may have no understanding of that. They may not be the best fit for us who want to help students take advantage of that. I would love one day to coach the record breaker in NIL money. But also, like we mentioned before, let's not lose sight. We got to cut down nets, and we got to walk across stages and get degrees with an S at the end, not just one. Let's get more than one degree. So these are all really big, lofty goals. But you know what? Every single kid I talk to, I say, "What's your goals in basketball?" They say, "I want to play in the NBA." That's a lofty goal too. We can, we got to have all of these lofty goals. They're all important. I'm not shooting any of them down. I scored 0 points as a college basketball player. My goal was to be a college basketball coach. Here I am. So I'm not going to tell anybody they can't do what they want to do. We just got to harness that wind the right way.
Believe it or not, Coach, if you cut down some nets, good things will happen too. Good things will happen.
Coach, I have a question. You talk about like them being adults. Parents, can we talk about this for a second? How do you deal with parents so beautifully? Like, how do you keep mom and dad happy? Sometimes the parents are very involved in the athlete's career, both like in their sports, their playing time, their practice schedule, their lives. But you're also a coach, and it's kind of like when they're coming off to college, you're like, mom and dad, I'm going to take care of them now, right? What do you do with the parents that are like trying to hold on for dear life and like helicoptering, if you will? We might have that in the NIL community.
Yeah. Look, parents want to be a part of their kids' lives. They should be able to. There's obviously got to be a healthy balance. Those boundaries need to be really established early on in recruiting, before there's a signing, after the ink dries, and then constant communication after that. If you're one of these coaches that says, all right, I'm only going to deal with the player, I'm not going to talk to the parent, like you're operating like a dinosaur. That we're going to run laps around you. Okay, it doesn't require everyone on our staff to have constant communication with family members, but we need to at least have a relationship and a presence, and they need to at least know that they can reach out to us when needed. Think about all of us on the call who are fortunate enough, and anyone else listening who have parents still in their lives, and we've got our degrees. They're still in our lives, so that we're not, going to create a boundary or a wall. We want them to be part of it. Re-recruiting your players on an annual basis is just as important, if not more important. Matter of fact, it is more important than recruiting next year's group. Okay, someone that's already in your program, that's the priority. And knowing not just parents, but there's a lot of sphere of influences that come around each individual student athlete, and we got to know who they are, what their ulterior motives may be, beyond just performing at a high level in the classroom and on the court. Everyone's got them. It does not make you a villain to have an ulterior motive. That's just something that we just have to be aware of. And so, we gotta work together. That's just the way I look at it. It's something that, I feel strongly about, because you're not going to separate a family. That being said, on a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1, sometimes even 4-to-1 rate in recruiting, conversations I'm having are with the prospect, then the parent or other members in that sphere of influence. And so that sets a pretty healthy precedent of like, this is the way communication will move forward once this player's here. Nothing's really changed. We're still staying in that same percentage, right? So if I talk to your player every single day, then I should be talking to the parent once a week, a month. That should suffice in that ratio of 4-to-1, right? So that's the way I look at it. I think it's healthy to send out updates. I go out to eat with the kid. I'm sitting there. I might sneak a picture and send it to their mom and dad. Hey, I'm sitting out with Sean today having lunch. And I think the parents will appreciate that, and they know that
their kids being taken care of. Yeah.
Best interests are there. Because the other thing that I strongly assume is that the student athlete is also communicating with the family. And so when communication aligns and we're saying the same thing, then I think guards go down and comfort is found in that ease. That's I think a great way to go about it moving forward. And if you're disingenuous at any point as a coach, that's on you. You lied or you did something sneaky. You lost that trust. That's when parents will attack. Think even in the animal kingdom, if there's a baby, whatever animal, and like let's call it a bear, and mama bear's around, we all know what that means when someone says, hey, mama bear's around. Mama cares about their child. It's you're not separating those emotions and those feelings. So you better do right by mama.
Love it.
Goes back to that trust you were talking about.
Well, Coach, this was awesome. We appreciate this so much, and you taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with us. We've heard some fun stories about you at Maryland with Sean, and we're just excited to see what you're doing at Coastal Carolina this season. This is another episode of the NIL Show with Coach Nima, Adam, Sean, myself, and listen in for the next one. We'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks.